Wake up, wake up. That was a tire fire, and now it is time to break it all down. Where do the Niners go from here? It's titled 49er Analysis. Campbell is a loser. Purdy, terrible pick. And Deebo drops 49ers last hope.
That's about it.
It's going to be that kind of show, folks.
Disappointing, unbecoming, unprofessional, embarrassing, and we're not even talking about Devondre Campbell yet. That's how bad it was for the 49ers last night. Welcome to Wake Up. I'm Damon. He's Larry. We're brought to you by Sam's Chowder House. If there were ever a day you needed some chowder to get over some bad football, today might be that day. It's a rainy day in the Bay Area. I don't
Not
know.
in Half Moon Bay, Damon.
Half Moon Bay, nothing but blue skies. Oh my goodness. Let me tell you, man.
Live camera look in right now at the restaurant.
What a catastrophic performance from guys who had sort of had some reputations on their line last night. You know, Deebo was just an absolute embarrassment to himself and his own career. Brock Purdy did not appoint himself well. Devondre Campbell is like easy pickings. Like, of course, everybody is going to focus on him today. It's easy to point out that and say, that guy sucks. Don't ever let him back in the building. And oh, by the way, that guy sucks. Don't ever let him back in the building. His card key should not work today. He should not even be allowed to pull into the parking lot. They should pick up his helmet at the freaking sidewalk. But you know what? He sucks. And he's not important to this team. He's not important to this team. He's actually held the team back. The nicest thing he's done for the 49ers all year is provide a little bit of coverage from a totally unacceptable game plan, rendering one of the limpest performances of Kyle's entire football life. I mean, I doubt he had many practices as a wide receiver in Texas that were as bad as his game plan was last night. And Nick Sorensen and company with Dre Greenlaw playing like a real man out there actually showed up and did their jobs. But unfortunately, it was an offensive disaster. And it felt like the weather played a part in that. And then the weather removed itself as an excuse and the football never got better. Trench warfare, lost in the trenches. 49ers got their asses kicked by a kind of a finesse team. It's just, that ain't good, Larry. It's not good.
No.
You know, there's a lot of people who, you know, on days where Kyle Shanahan wins games, want a total tear down and reclamation. You know, here's the thing. I'm a bigger Kyle Shanahan fan than most, I think. I think you are as well. I think we look at a competent, well-prepared, most usually in position to win football games coach. But, God, there are some data points coming back that just make me say, Kyle Shanahan and Brock Purdy together chasing wins from behind in the fourth quarter. It's got real no shot at working. So unless you can guarantee me third quarter leads in every upcoming future game for the 49ers, you know, we can have a discussion about who do you want to go forward with. Because the two of them together, when you need to make plays in the fourth quarter, aren't getting the job done. And that's no longer debatable. There's no longer any room to cover that up.
I don't know. I don't necessarily agree. I mean, you're talking about a team sport. It's easy to point to the head coach and the quarterback. Everybody points to the head coach and the quarterback. But what about the O-line? What about everything else? I mean, it's just, I don't think it's as simple as that. The Niners don't agree with you. They're going forward with Kyle Shanahan. They're going to go forward with Brock Purdy.
Well, I didn't say get rid of them, but I'm just also here to tell you that Brock at 60 is going to be be I think.
Well, 60, you know, we can deal. I mean, the money.
You're extending Daniel Jones like you're extending a total incompetent. It's not like a mistake that the New York Giants are making, but that's a price point I'm a little fearful of. And Josh Dubow unleashed a couple of, you know, torrents of information post game that are jarring, that really are jarring. And you're right. It's never just the coach. It's never just the quarterback. But this is the biggest Dubow bomb I've seen all season long.
Here's the question, though. If you don't want to make a change, then what are we really talking about?
Right. Well, again, it's not up to us
Well,
to
it's
make
just bitching
change.
for the sake of bitching, right? Because we're not
Okay.
really making a change. Because I mean, that's the thing. I mean, there's so many people that are like, I've been saying that this. Okay, but guess what? You're just a Twitter voice in the in the Twitterverse, and I mean, you can keep saying it. You've said it. You've made your point, but John Lynch just went on KMBR this week and was asked about Brock Purdy's contract extension. Said, "Hey, man, I don't want to talk about that. We don't talk about those things, but he's our guy." So I think he probably, I don't think that's a misdirection. I think that's probably the case. And he just came out last week and said, hey, all these people saying Shanahan's on the hot seat, Shanahan can be traded. He's our guy. So like we can talk about the Niner future and we should, but if people want to park on the corner of get rid of Shanahan and Purdy, I mean, you can do it, but it's just not all that productive because I don't think it's going to change.
Well, and neither do I. And I'm not endorsing a change either. But I am telling you that my confidence in them being the only two correct answers to the question, what's best for the 49ers, is shaken a little. It really is.
Well, who do you like? Go ahead. Who do you want?
So
What's better? Who's better?
Look, I don't have the answer, but for the first time, I'm listening to the questions because, look, I am someone. Don't paint me as you're
I'm not painting him. I'm just kind of carrying it out. I'm not painting you as anything. I'm just carrying it out to the logical conclusion, which is lots of people today are going to bitch and moan about Brock Purdy, and nobody said he was elite. He just is better than what you had. Right. That was the point. The point was he's better than what you have or had in Jimmy immediately and in Trey eventually. And that's how we got here. So there's nothing nefarious happened. Nothing. It's like, is he good enough to be a Super Bowl winner? I don't know. I mean, Jalen Hurts, is he good enough to be a Super Bowl winner? Because to me, they're very similar. They look a little different, but they get it done a lot similarly, and they also kind of need a really good surrounding cast. And last year without one, Hurts didn't do much, and this year with one, they look a lot better. I still don't know if Hurts can win a Super Bowl, and we don't know if Purdy can win a Super Bowl. But this whole like he's not elite, so banish him from the kingdom kind of exercise that we see a lot in the chat and on social media is like. Is that productive? I understand it's a great morning to bitch about these guys. The offense was horrible. But in reality, I did the rewatch late into the night last night. And what I saw was Brock Purdy played a pretty damn good game and had two or three bad throws. And one of them cost him a pick.
Yeah. The decision on the interception at the end of the game was a decision that literally, Brock, one of your attributes is you're the guy who doesn't make that bad play. So you can't be the guy now who makes that bad play. And that was ridiculous, especially with a wide open Ricky Pearsall underneath. And at that point, it's all about down distance and situation. You don't even want to score a fast touchdown right here, to be totally honest with you, Brock. The way this night's going. You want to kill as much clock as you can. You want to get into this red zone. You want to bleed. And you are in 4-down territory the rest of the way because you need a touchdown. So, you don't need to take that big stab there. I'm sure Brock would like to have that back.
Although they didn't need a touchdown. They didn't need a touchdown. Not when he took. Are you talking about when he threw the pick? They didn't need a touchdown. They were only down 9-6. They were in field goal range, Damon, and that's why it was especially heinous. Right. Because you're in field goal range and your kicker can make that field goal. Once you're in field goal range, you have to at least get the field goal to tie. You can't turn it over there and get nothing and lose the game. And that's what happened. He got way too aggressive. And if you watch the All-22, every time he got super aggressive, and it wasn't a lot yesterday, but it was 2 or 3 times, there was somebody open underneath that he didn't go to. And he's got to be more patient. I mean, he said it. He blamed. I'll say this. He went to the podium and said, man, it was on me. And that was true because he did put the ball in harm's way when they were inside a field goal range, ready to tie the game. And their defense had allowed just the one, monster play, right? So the defense had really held. So it was just, Brock made the wrong play at the wrong time. To me, the more egregious is not Brock, it's Kyle. From the standpoint, Brock made a mistake, and Brock might not be the guy. We'll see. But I think he is the guy. When I say the guy, I just mean I think he's their franchise quarterback. I think he's the best quarterback they can get. But I don't think he's Mahomes, Allen, Lamar. I don't think he's in that top tier. I think he's in that next tier. But I wouldn't put yesterday on Brock as much, even though he threw the pick. I'd put it on Kyle. Why? Because the 49ers, Damon, it was really clear coming into the game that their best weapon was Kittle, and their second best weapon was Jennings, and their third best weapon was Garendo. And none of those three guys were prioritized in getting the football as much as Deebo Samuel. And this Deebo Samuel, let's get him going. There's nothing to get going. He's 28. He's been through a lot of hits. He's lost a step. He's averaging 2-point-something yards per carry per rush. Yesterday, he averaged under 2 yards a rush. He doesn't separate against man coverage. They never should have devoted huge chunks of this game plan to getting this guy off. They should have went to the other weapons who were producing. And this is week 15. We know what Deebo is at this point. For them to try to ignore their playmakers and then go right to Deebo, and it's obvious they were trying to get Deebo going.
Yep.
What a fucking disaster that was.
That
was a terrible decision on the part of Shanahan.
It was, and honestly, thinking, and I still got to give you this Deebo bomb about Purdy that I teased, but I haven't set up yet. I would sit Deebo the rest of the year. I would get every single one of his snaps to Jacob Cowing. I just say, you know what? You got all the time in your world to book guests for your podcast because you're not playing football anymore. You bum. And what we don't want is you getting hurt in any one of these games that would handcuff our options to deal with you as we see fit in this offseason. We see this happens with quarterbacks all the time. I would not have Deebo Samuel play another down if I'm the 49ers. And I'm not saying that you're going to move on from him. Maybe you don't. But I wouldn't risk any options. I wouldn't risk anything that limited my options on Deebo, like some sort of an injury. And we all know that Deebo is a sneeze away from getting hurt on the football field at all times. So I would rather bring Jacob Cowing up to fail miserably over the last 3 developmental weeks of football and see what you got in him than trying to mine further of what you might have left in Deebo. I'm really not interested. When he dropped a touchdown last night. I mean, that was as in the breadbasket, in stride. There you go. Like you say, it ain't you. It's the team not getting you the ball. Well, last night, if nothing, the only thing that Kyle accomplished was humbling Deebo Samuel. Deebo shouldn't say a word again this year into a microphone. Not a word about what he could be doing if only given the opportunity. Because he let an opportunity to stay alive in this football season slip right through his fingers multiple times last night. He was awful.
Yeah. He dropped a touchdown. The touchdown would have made it 10-6.
Would have been the only touchdown in the game. How about that?
I mean, at that point, 10-6 would have been huge, right? Because then that's more than a field goal. Yeah, I mean, it's like, you know what? You're right. I mean, the only thing that got decided yesterday was this whole debate of, is Deebo struggling or is he not getting the ball? He's fucking struggling.
Yeah.
All right. And whether he wants to admit it or not, whether Shanahan wants to admit it or not, whether Purdy wants to admit it or not, whether his teammates want to admit it or not, whether suck-up fans want to admit it or not, he is struggling. And we have a definitive answer. We also have the end of our season. Thanks for that. Where was JJ? Where was Kittle? Where was Garendo? Those guys should have touched the ball. I mean, it was clear in the biggest moments of the first half of this game. They were hell-bent on going to Deebo. And they went to Deebo. And when you watch the All-22, Brock Purdy went to Deebo, and every single time for the most part, except for the one he dropped, ironically, he was covered. He was covered all night. Everywhere he went, there was somebody right there with him. Every ball that was thrown to him, the defender was right there making a play on the ball. The only time he was open, he dropped the fucking ball.
You know,
with the game on the line.
There are games too that are, built for fullbacks, and those are usually ugly, muddy, bad, nasty games, which last night was. Why is Kyle Juszczyk on this football team? What does he do for this football team other than fumble on the goal line in Green Bay this year? It's all he's done for this football team this year. Kyle Juszczyk is uninvolved in this box score in any way. He is occupying a space that should be going to another running back, another wide receiver, Trent Taylor, somebody. Hold open fucking tryouts this afternoon at Santa Clara. I don't care.
Well, it's time to find out who wants to be here and who doesn't. I mentioned that to Bosa at the end of the game. I'm like, is this last month going to be about character? And he's like, yeah, man, who wants to be a Niner? Who wants to be a Niner? Who wants to be here? And you know what? Some guys can't. I mean, here's the thing. I don't love doing I told you so radio because I feel like I'm right a lot about a number of things. And I don't like being, hey, guys, I was right about this. Hey, guys, I was right about that. But this one, I have to take the victory lap on. I did not only tell you guys for months that Devondre Campbell sucked and was a major problem in their run D. And look, he gets pulled, and look how good their run D. They totally shut down Kyron Williams in the first half of that game. Couldn't do anything, and Greenlaw was everywhere. So I was right on Campbell, but where I was really right on Campbell is I think, and I got to get Kev to dig this up and make it a video, as I told you, I said Devondre Campbell is the kind of personality that if they yank him from the lineup, they will have to cut him because he will be such a negative influence in the room that he won't be able to come to grips with it, and he'll be such a negative influence that they'll have to banish him from the kingdom. Sure enough, why did the Niners have 12 men on the field penalties back-to-back plays recently? Devondre Campbell. And why have they struggled so mightily against the run? Largely Devondre Campbell. And what happened when the all-world Drake Greenlaw was back and it was time for them to decide who do we want on the field, and they chose Winters and Warner and Greenlaw, and Devondre was taken off the field? That's it. He's like, I don't want to play anymore. I'm too proud. I'm too this. I'm too that. I'm walking back to the locker room. The ultimate selfish maneuver, because if you had told the team at 3:00 that, hey, if you're going to pull me, I'm not going to play, then they could have said, well, okay, we're going to put up Jalen Graham,
right,
full player up there instead. Yeah. When you say you're going to go, I mean, it's an unspoken thing between men in that room that if you say you're going to go in that game. Because there's no bench. It's not like you got a taxi squad ready to sit there and say, oh, Devondre doesn't want to play. Oh, okay, go get this linebacker. No, you're going to play shorthanded because of him.
Put me in. I'm ready to go. He doesn't want it. I do. No, yeah. It's
how ironic. Greenlaw would do anything to be in there, and Campbell would do anything to be out of there.
I saw Josina Anderson trying to talk some bullshit calm into the situation when people were saying, Devondre Campbell needs to be cut last night. She's like, what Devondre Campbell needs is an opportunity to explain himself and share with the team his mental state. Wrong. Wrong. Devondre Campbell should never be allowed in the facility ever again. Whatever his key code or pass key that opened up the front door for him, when he goes to use it the next time, he shouldn't even get in the building. And the Turk should come on out, say, give us your playbook. Your uniform's gone. Get off property. You are no longer welcome here. And he's never going to play another down in football. The only time I can even think of another guy in my lifetime actively quitting during the game was Buffalo Bills at halftime had Vernon Davis's brother quit, right? Vontae Davis quit on the Bills at halftime a couple of years ago. And I don't think we ever saw him in the league again. We're never.
I mean,
playing himself out of this league anyways. He wasn't going to be back next year anyways. He can never be allowed back around a football situation. He doesn't even get to come to the company picnic 20 years from now. He has ruined his reputation in this sport forever in one selfish choice. I'm walking off this football field. I'm taking my ball and I'm going home. That is the biggest bitch move a football player can offer. It really is. I'd rather have Deebo drop 50 balls than quit on a team. You know what I mean?
I told this story in the post game. last night, and it's nothing great. It's a story of my late father who would never allow us to quit anything.
Yeah.
Right. And I
Once you
remember
start-
one year, I was good at baseball, basketball, but I wasn't very good at soccer. But I played on the team, and I played for a year or two. And then, like, sixth grade, I'm like, God, Dad, I don't think I want to play anymore. And he's like, that's fine. But if you go out and you try out for the team and you make the team, you're going to play the full year, and you can quit next year. And, the point was clear, which is if you join a team, whether it's a youth team, a high school team, a college team, or a pro team, the concept of team means you're sacrificing for the greater good. The concept of team means you're going to do what's best for the team, not necessarily what's best for you. And the concept of team is that your guys are depending on you. So you will not be going to the world's greatest birthday party just because it happens to be during your game. You're going to your goddamn game because you're on the team. And that's what I don't care if they got a jumpy house and a horse and they're going to Marriott's and there's going to be a cake and it does not matter to George Kruger. You are on the team. You are going to the game, and you're on the team, and you're going to attend every single practice. And there was no debate about that, Damon, in our house. And you could quit at the end of the year, but not in season. And you know what? It's a core value. Well, and it's one that I think is shared by lots of competitors on lots of different levels of sports. And I think that's really all that, it's almost like a basic human sports contract that we all enter into when you play team sports. Well, and Devondre Campbell broke that contract, and his teammates last night were pissed.
It's a contract.
Mooney Ward was irate.
Yeah. Dude, it's a contract of manhood. Your dad, in that moment, when you were a little boy, you probably thought that entire moment was about sports. It wasn't.
Right.
About personal responsibility. It's about following through. It's about work ethic.
It's about a defense. It's about defensive football, which is what's defensive football about? The number one word, accountability.
Yes. And that's it. And that's what your father was teaching you. Yeah. And it's what Devondre Campbell forgot. And it's why you will see. I mean, George Kittle is one of the best. Let's put that game behind us. Start focusing on next week. I've never seen George Kittle more white hot, behind his eyes, pissed off, talking at a podium. Not ever. I would say that Kyle Shanahan did everything he could to not use the phrase "that motherfucker" about 30 times in that press conference last night. Devondre Campbell needs to be motherfucked out of the NFL forever and a day now. He has no place in this league, in this sport ever again. He will never set foot in that facility again if the 49ers have any dignity about them.
Well, and it's not because of this. It's just because he's not good. I mean, if he was good, you could get away with this, but he's not good, and that's why. And, here's the problem, Damon, and I hate to another one of these, I told you so's, but the Niners need to be faster with these things. If I can evaluate this and I'm just a guy, then they should be able to evaluate this quicker. And what I'm talking about was last year, it was obvious to everybody early that Isaiah Oliver was not good and that he was the weak link. But it took until after the fucking bye week in Jacksonville till they replaced him with Ambry Thomas and the defense took off. Why? Because they were trying to protect their off-season decision-making and spending of Jed's money by giving Oliver every and any opportunity to show that he could play, and he could not play. And then they did it again this year with Campbell. I mean, it was obvious in the Arizona game. He had no agility. He had no place being there. There's all kinds of guys on the street that can really run. They should have taken an investment and a chance on a flyer on those guys. But no, they waited. It's fucking December 12th. Today, we're getting rid of this player. It's December 13th, and he's cost you tons on the year. And you're not going to get rid of him until December. Why? Because you're protecting your free agent decision-making in the offseason. If you're going to win, everybody, players, coaches, scouts, executives, everybody needs accountability. We're not perfect. We all make mistakes. But when we make mistakes, we need to own them and correct them and move on. Can we all agree? And the Niners did not own their Oliver mistake and correct it and move on until it was too late. And then they fucking did it again this year with Campbell. And that is a major problem. You need to evaluate your players faster and better and more accurately and more decisively. And if they're not the right guy, get them out of the room sooner.
Larry, I think that they're not doing things in a timely fashion really does define what went wrong with this year. Go all the way back to twiddling their thumbs about Brandon Ayuk for as long as they did. Then the Trent Williams holdout. Then, this inexplicable patience with special teams failure.
Penalties, special teams penalties yesterday. Yeah. I mean,
there
sorry,
are
Schneider, you got to go.
There has been there's been a lack of urgency to correct mistakes, a lack of urgency to realize, hey, Ronnie Bell's not a fucking NFL player. Like, why'd that take you so long? If I can figure that out from my couch, how can you not figure that out from a coach's room? Ronnie Bell stinks. Get somebody else in here who might not stink. They've made some really questionable decisions and choices, and they've come back to roost, and they're getting beat up in the trenches every time you look up now. Dominic Pooney, I think, has hit a little bit of a rookie wall. He's had a couple of struggling games after being so impressive earlier in the year. But again, I'm not going to put it on a rookie guard that this is the reason why things are falling apart.
I mean, he's obviously the solution than the problem, but I hear you. It's a team-wide regression.
18 pressures last night they gave up. Every offensive lineman gave up at least 3 pressures, which, as you said, Larry, goes an awful lot into the mix of why it's not working out for Brock. But let me share this Dubow bomb with you. Josh Dubow of the AP had just a stream of jarring stats associated with Niner collapses, and I got to share some of them with you right here. Brock Purdy, when down 1 to 8 points in the fourth quarter in the regular season or in the playoffs, is 33 for 60 for 402 yards, 3 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, and a passer rating under 60. That ranks him 144th out of 160 quarterbacks with 50-plus attempts in a similar scenario since 2000. So, again, it's not all on Brock, but
once again, what that reveals is that the 49ers do not have a good enough drop back passing game to drop back and pass when everybody knows they need to pass. Mm-hmm. Chris Sims was talking about this with Florio going into the game and why he picked the Rams to win the game. He's like, the 49ers need play action pass, and it's about how well are they going to run the ball on the Rams. And sure enough, they didn't run the ball very well on the Rams. They ran it great against Buffalo, but they didn't run it great against the Rams. Only 3-3 a carry. And so when you don't have the run and you're just a straight drop back team and you don't have Ayuk, you don't have much. I mean, look at he doesn't have, I mean, people talked about, Brock's got the Avengers. Last year he had some amazing players, but look at his weapons this year. I mean, Ricky Pearsall was targeted 4 times yesterday. He caught 1 of the balls. Deebo was targeted 7 times. He only caught 3. That means he dropped 4. Caught 3, dropped 4. That's not good. Jennings yesterday had a bad day. He now, granted, they went to him a few times in the rain in some tough spots, but they targeted him 9 times. He dropped 7 of them, or 7 of them didn't complete, and 2 of them did. So it's like the Niners don't have weapons right now that they can just drop back and make it happen. They just don't have good enough passing game. Not just Brock, it's everything. It's Brock, it's the line, it's the receivers, it's the lack of separation, but those are revealing stats. They absolutely, but to me, it's like, once again, it's like we're taking a snapshot of the head as the body, is
right.
Or eliminating the body.
We can go through the buffet and hand select stats that make Brock Purdy look like he's going to be a future Hall of Famer. We can hand select stats that makes it look like Brock Purdy needs to be moved on from immediately. There are 2 different ways to look at things. And if you're only just focusing on one thing and not taking it all in, again, Brock at the podium last night, taking full account for that game, is a reason why I do believe in the young man. A reason why I like his maturity, his work ethic, the way that he represents the team facing forward publicly. And normally when things are good around him, He gets the job done. Most losses in the regular season or playoffs in games that a team held a lead in the fourth quarter since Kyle Shanahan was hired in 2017. The laughable Indianapolis Colts lead the league with 24 of those. Then it's the 49ers and the Chargers with 22 apiece. 22 times since 2017, the 49ers have enjoyed a fourth quarter lead and watched it slip away. Again, and then the defensive consultant that they brought in to help this year was the head coach of the guy who's done it the other 22 times.
Once again, I mean, I don't know what to say to the Brock detractors other than this. He's the best that you got. I acknowledge that most of the time you need a franchise, altering type quarterback, maybe even a borderline Hall of Fame type quarterback to win Super Bowls. History kind of says that if you have a Hall of Fame quarterback, you got a much better chance to win a Super Bowl than if you don't. I think we would all agree that I forget all agree. I'll just state it. He's not a Hall of Famer, but he is a second-tier quarterback that I think sits between 6 and 12, somewhere in there. That's where I think he sits. Obviously, in those stats, he doesn't. But ultimately, I think we all pretty much, after we talk the whole thing out, I think most of the reasonable, logical people have to come to the same conclusion, which is, what do you need to do if you're the Niners at quarterback? You need to go forward with Brock Purdy. At the same time, you need to fill up the rest of the quarterback room with viable young quarterbacks that you like until you find a better quarterback than Brock Purdy. I think it's incumbent that you keep looking for a franchise quarterback, but I also think it's incumbent that you sign Brock Purdy as your current franchise quarterback.
Can I run a scenario past you? So John Lund came on as my second quarter watch party live stream guest, and John Lund and I were more entertaining than that fucking football game was. Seriously, forget about watching the All-22. Go watch last night's show, Larry. John and I were great. The Niners were not. We also got drunk together. We drank about a half a bottle of whiskey. This was a lot fuller. This was a lot more full than it was.
A virtual bar? Is that what it was?
John and I had a really good time last night. He brought up a little something because, like you, when we're talking about Brock, what's the price?
A little something or a little something?
Just bourbon.
A little something. Yeah. All right.
Yeah. Let me run this past you because okay. So, what would you rather have?
Quarterback idea.
This is a quarterback idea.
Yeah. I think it's a good day for that.
What would you rather have? Brock Purdy at $60 million or Sam Darnold at 25? Because Sam Darnold's probably back on the open market. You could probably go back to Darnold and get him in here for under 30 as opposed to the huge deal that you'd have to pay Purdy. It would be a walk away from Purdy.
Why? Okay, why was Sam Darnold good? Was Sam Darnold good because Sam Darnold's awesome? I mean, it's hilarious. The same people that were like telling us yet last year, complaining super loud. I mean, does anybody see the irony in this? That the same people last summer who were like losing their shit that Sam Darnold was over Trey Lance on the Niner depth chart are now advocating abandoning Brock Purdy to go for Sam. No, but I'm not saying you are, but you're not the first person that's brought this up.
Just asking you.
No, it's interesting. It's interesting. It's very interesting because it's like Sam Darnold had a really good year. Now Sam Darnold has Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison. Mm-hmm. I kind of think that's kind of good. I mean, I kind of
line too.
Darisaw and those guys,
and a coach who doesn't have writer's block. Kevin O'Connell.
Pretty good coach, pretty good coaching staff, pretty good defense. So he's got a lot of things going right for him. He still does have double-digit picks, doesn't he? What does Sam have? I haven't checked Sam's stats, but what was Sam's stats for the year? Let me see.
He's over.
That's interesting. I mean, what would you do with Purdy then?
Trade him.
See, now what do you think he would fetch?
Multiple second and third rounders.
I'll just say this.
By the way,
They
I wouldn't do it. I'm not even
look. You got to
advocating
look
it.
at everything. You have to look at everything. If you, I mean, I'm not going to sit there and say no, absolutely not. But I just told you, I think Sam Darnold is kind of a turnover machine, and I think he's looked good in Minnesota this year. But I mean, Brock Purdy's not a 1-year wonder. Brock
Nope.
Purdy. It's like some of the stuff. It's amazing.
So coming into this game last night, Brock Purdy was leading the NFL in yards per attempt in one of the worst yards after catch years any 49er season has ever had. And the year before, he led the NFL in yards per attempt, and everybody said, "Well, it's all yak yards. It's got nothing to do with Brock. He's got a noodle arm, Mr. Dink and Dunk. It's all running after the catch that is making that number happen." Now there's no running after the catch, and he's still leading the league in yards per attempt.
Brock Purdy has the most 100+ quarterback rating days of any quarterback in the history of the NFL in his first 3 seasons.
Yeah.
He's got like 13 or 14 100 quarterback rating games. And it's the most of any quarterback in the history of the NFL in their first 3 years. And now we got all these people saying he's not him. He's not him. It's like after one bad game, people that were bragging that he was special are arguing that he's not him. Well, which one is it? You argued that he was special, and now you're arguing that he's not him. I mean,
what I'm worried about,
which one is it?
There is an element of weather that renders Brock almost not the guy today. Like you might want to go with your backup quarterback with a slippery ball,
which is an issue.
It is an issue. Luckily, the Niners play mostly in good weather. They didn't reach the red zone or score a touchdown in a game for the first time since 2012. The 191 yards last night, the fewest ever in a regular season game under Kyle Shanahan. They had 164 yards in the 2022 NFC title game against the Eagles, and that is when, they had Christian McCaffrey taking quarterback snaps because it was just a disaster around Brock's injury, and then Josh Johnson is one of the biggest pieces of shit to ever pretend to be a quarterback in this league. And he might be a great guy, but as a football player, he was irrelevant. And look, what I know is that the 49ers need to absolutely do a top to bottom reinventory of every single one of their assets. And they can no longer say that today's asset holds the same value as it did last year. And there is some serious stress on the 49ers to be successful at the top of this draft, because I was reading a really interesting article the other day, Larry, about how NIL is going to take day 3 of the NFL draft and basically ruin it. You're going to have borderline professional football players on day 3 in this upcoming draft. Once you get past the 3rd round, you're going to be out of real, going to have a future in the NFL football players, because the NIL money is going to keep guys who really do think one day they're going to go into the league and make money. They're going to stay another year in college. So there will not be all these 5th rounders that are going to turn into real, boons for you after you blow your 1st round picks. So getting your picks right earlier in the draft will mean more than ever before. So
there's always going to be good players in the draft. I mean, there's always going to be every draft, there's going to be some years where there's, this position's strong, that position's weak, whatever.
Right.
But, they're always going. You're always going to have to build through the draft. Why? Because otherwise you get Devondre Campbell. Otherwise you get guys that you don't know their culture, and that's really what was going on. Is when you have to go for free agents. Guess what? You get a Kelly Oubre, you get an AJ Pierzynski, and you get a Devondre Campbell. You're getting another team's culture and another team's player, and you don't know a lot about that player, and you don't know how they're going to blend in your culture. Have you noticed in the NFL since free agency has begun? We can almost count on one hand the number of players that were better in the team that they signed with than the team that they left. Almost everybody in the NFL is worse with the team that they go to than the team that they left. Why is that? Because it takes time to learn a system, and guys don't fit in every system, and what I mean? It's just
one dude. There's one dude who literally left a great situation, went to a worse situation, but still maintained he's a total stud reputation, and that was Tyreek Hill, right? Tyreek Hill leaves the Chiefs and he's still unstoppable.
I mean, there's others too. I mean, Devontae has always been good everywhere, and I mean, he wasn't the same Green Bay Devontae with the Raiders, but there's other players that have played well. I'm just saying that generally you leave a bigger hole in the team that you vacated than you add to the team that you go to, and it's just kind of it's I don't know. I mean, it's just a way better way to build is through the draft. But back to Purdy and Darnold, I mean, it would be an interesting thing. I mean, Darnold did have 28 touchdowns this year, but 10 picks. Purdy's got 15 touchdowns, 9 picks. Purdy's been sacked a bunch. Darnold, I don't know. I mean, is Brock Purdy's struggles about Brock Purdy, or the Niners' struggles about Brock Purdy, or are the Niners' offensive struggles about Kyle Shanahan? Are they about the 49ers offensive line that seems very challenged according to the people who evaluate offensive linemen? Is it about the lack of speed at receiver? I mean, I'll say this. The one thing about the Niners this year that I think was the most interesting is that I think everybody on paper looked at their linebackers and their weapons and said elite. But in reality, when it got time to actually the rubber meets the road, they weren't just not elite. They weren't even league average.
Right. Yeah. No, there was a huge. How about this? If your name isn't George Kittle, you were in some way an offensive disappointment this year. Jordan Mason, I'm going to let you off.
JJ was great. I mean, JJ had a great bust out year, but outside of JJ, Pearsall doesn't look good. Deebo looks like, milk with expired dates. Ayuk was a shadow of what he was last year. This year, he was never that guy. CMC couldn't even get on the field, then had one great half or whatever against Buffalo and is now done. I mean, it's, Juszczyk fumbled in his biggest moment of the year. Kittle was underutilized. I mean, it was dramatically underutilized. Cowing wasn't ready. Shockingly, rookie receivers don't do a whole lot in the NFL, and not surprisingly, the Niners' 2 rookie receivers didn't do a whole lot. So yeah, I mean, they're going to have to look at really every aspect of this football team. But is it, it sounds to me like they're staying with Kyle, they're staying with Brock, and then they're going to go from there and build around them. But I mean, it's time to build an offensive line, a big physical offensive line. It's time to, to me, if we back away from the Niners for a second and just take a look at the league, the theme is about the best teams all have great offensive lines.
That's it.
And the Niners don't have a great offensive line.
That's how it's always been.
I don't know if it's always been that way, but I mean, there's almost no exceptions.
Right.
I mean, name me a great NFL team that doesn't have a top tier offensive line. It almost doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And then, by the way, I said this yesterday. There's not 20 keys to last night. There's one key and one key only. And I did the video on it yesterday afternoon. The Niners have to hit and sack Matthew Stafford a lot, or he's going to beat them. And they had 0 sacks.
Well, and Stafford put up an eminently beatable game. The Rams, that's the most beatable the Los Angeles Rams have been all year with just their 12 points. And the 49ers failed to take advantage of that in a home game, in a gots to have it, must win, everyone is desperate as humanly possible game. For that to be the offensive production, it's a huge disappointment. Again, it leaves everybody not just scratching their head going, what the fuck? It leaves everybody kind of reevaluating what everyone does around here. It's
everybody. What everybody does. Yeah. I mean, it's and I get it. There are people that were, losing their mind in the chat because they're like, how, it's, the let's blame Kyle Shanahan crew was like, oh my God, they scored 6 points and you guys are talking defense. Well, we're talking defense largely because of Devondre Campbell, but it really was, the defense was great in this game. But once again, as we've seen all season long, where did the defense fall apart? The fourth quarter.
Yep.
The game's 6-6. And then what happened? The defense gives up a 5-play, 59-yard drive. They kick a 27-yard field goal. They're down 9-6. Then LA gets the ball back, and they go 15 plays and 69 yards. And Kyron Williams picked up 28 yards on 6 carries, and Cardi makes another 29-yard field goal to make it 12-6. But it wasn't the field goal that hurt. It was burning of 4 minutes and 50 seconds of the clock. The Niners could not, once again, defensively in the fourth quarter, they're disaster. They're one of the worst defenses in pro football in the fourth quarter.
The Rams made a choice to kick a field goal on a 4th and reasonable to put them up 9-6. And, we were both saying, geez, I'm surprised. I think I might go for it there, continue to put the kill shot on. And John and I were talking about that in the live stream last night. And then I said, you know what Sean McVay just told us? He ain't afraid of the Niners doing anything over the top offensively. He does not.
He knows they're slow.
The Niners are gonna quick strike their way back into this game tonight. So he's just going to bleed him out. And that's what happened. If you are here right now, what a frustrating Thursday night. At least you got the weekend off. You can have some stress-free football watching this weekend, I guess, if you're a 49er fan. You're not going to have them mudding up your Sunday. But it is great to have you here. Please hit like and subscribe. We give a lobster roll away every week to our player of the game. I'm guessing we have a unanimous lobster roll here, Larry. How can you not give it to Dre Greenlaw after, he was leading this team in tackling until he had to come out of the game, and Fred Warner ended up leading the team in tackles last night. But Dre Greenlaw looked better than I could have even hoped he would look, and just in terms of his movement. And I think this is a guy you're extending. I think this is a guy that you're bringing back just based on that. He's a really good football player. My lobster roll goes to Dre Greenlaw. Then I see, God, we got a lot of supers here this morning, Larry. We got to get into those. Who are you giving your lobster roll to?
Greenlaw. Come on, man. Greenlaw it was amazing how he played. And, with him back in the lineup, the Niners went with the nickel to start the game. And they had Greenlaw and Warner as their 2 stack backers. And then what happened was, and the reason that Campbell was so pissed, was that when they went to the base, they went to D. Winters. And guess what? They should have gone to D. Winters. It was the only answer. It was the only answer. And then there were injuries. And then they needed Campbell to go into the game. And then he said, screw you, and walked off. And so this is what Mooney Ward, Mooney was probably the guy who was most angered by it. Though Fred said, or George said, man, I wish I'd known on the field, because I would have had something to say about it at the time. And I would have loved to have seen George Kittle kind of confront him. And George Kittle is kind of the Niners, I don't want to say bouncer but he is kind of their conscience. When we called out Chase Young last year for dogging it, who did he go up to in the beginning of the Super Bowl and right before the game started and was like, I'm going to play my ass off and I'm going to give everything I have? He was telling that to George Kittle. So, and in a lot of ways, I feel like Kittle's like the guy that kind of demands it. And then not that he's the baddest A in the world or anything, but just that he's kind of like the guardian of their standard, if you want to say.
He's the real one. He's the real one. Everyone understands that he's a tone setter.
Right. And also he's respected, and he does play a million miles an hour, so he's got the respect. But here's Mooney Ward, and I don't have the audio, but here's what he said. He's like, he's a professional, Ward said. He's been talking about Campbell. He's been playing for a long time. If he didn't want to play, he shouldn't have dressed out. He could have told them that before the game. I feel like that was some sucker shit that he did. It definitely hurt the team. D went down and we needed a linebacker. So for him to do that, that's some sucker stuff to me, in my opinion. He's probably going to get cut soon. So it is what it is with that.
Again, he should have been cut last night. Kyle should have cut him at that podium. He basically did when he said, we're not going to think about that player anymore. I mean, I can't imagine there's any room at the inn for Devondre Campbell anymore down in Santa Clara.
It's a month late. It's a month too late. They should have cut this guy a month ago. It was obvious a month ago.
They should have fired their special teams coordinator 2 weeks into the season. They should have fired Devondre Campbell 6 weeks ago. They should have started exploring what other players looked like to help this offense grow than just leaning into guys who aren't getting it done. The Willie Snead, Kyle's got his favorites thing that we mocked in the offseason. He might have been right. He might have been right. Kyle clearly tried to do something for Deebo that he never tries to do for Kittle. I don't see Kittle ever being force-fed a football the way that Kyle tried to force-feed Deebo from the first play of the game to the biggest play of the game. So I don't know. It felt like the 49ers lost the plot last night, and they certainly lost the season. I'm not here for your 1% playoff odds. You're done. The year is over. We're going to be talking NFL draft soon. Let's hop in, Larry. We got an awful lot of supers to get through.
All right, let's go. Fuji, Simeon, Larry, I'm sorry I was too harsh last night. It's wrong to say Campbell's car. He said Key Campbell's car. Team bonding should be to steal his catalytic converter and take his car to Oakland for a sideshow and then burn the car and then abandon it in Oakland. Okay.
Yeah. There's Devondre Campbell gets nothing nice around here anymore. No benefit of the doubt, no protection. You are out of the circle of love. You're dead to us.
MKG, is Lynch the real problem? Well, I'll tell you, Lynch has had a lot of success on day 3 of the draft, but they need to do better in round 1. They are absolutely partially part of their issue. Large part of their issue is that they've missed on 8 number 1 picks. 8 out of 10. That's not good.
And are those including the picks traded away for Trey Lance?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, they all count. Fuji Simeon, great collab with Lund. Damon, please do more in the future.
We had never done a show together. All the time that we worked at the same station at competing stations, John Lund and I never did a show together until last night, and it was a lot of fun. We had a great time.
Oh, he's a good dude. He's a regular now on Mondays. Johnny is a Monday Krug show post-game, post-Monday Night Football. That's where we're collabing together. Artificial. I like that. I like that. 13 plus Monken and SEC O-line guys equals 27-28 Super Bowl. Oh, Todd Monken. He wants Todd Monken and some SEC offensive linemen, and they're going to the Super Bowl. Todd Monken.
That easy. He's the offensive coordinator of the Baltimore Ravens, right?
Yeah, he was in college for a while. Greg Arjazy says, unbelievable how fickle you two are. The O-line sucks. No time to throw. Throw passes dropped. Brock is a top 10 quarterback. He's proved it time and time again. Ridiculous.
Also,
Greg, I don't know who you're talking to, but I think I just said Brock is somewhere between 5 and 12. So you say he's top 10. So I'm saying he's been between 5 and 12. I'm saying that you have to look at everything, including him. And you know what? You should.
Hey,
all I'm saying is you need to keep looking for another quarterback. Keep Brock because he's the best you got. And go with Brock because he's the leader in the room and the best you got. And then keep drafting, trying to find a future Hall of Fame quarterback. And if it happens, it happens. And maybe along the way, Brock gets it done. But, I mean, I don't know what the better solution is. I don't think a better solution is Sam Darnold. I don't. But at the same time, if Brock would fetch a lot in a trade and you could get a reclamation project quarterback that you wanted, I think you got to consider everything, especially now with the cap, with them being hugged up against the cap and they're not in the same spot they were when they first took over the regime. I think they're going to have to literally think outside the box. But I'm not moving off of Brock Purdy unless I have a better option or I'm getting a haul of picks for Brock in a trade and I have an equal option. Because I just think that's not the way to go.
3 of Purdy's 4 lowest passing totals of the regular season as a starter have come in his last 4 starts. He was awful against Seattle, Buffalo, and last night in LA. And look, he's not the only one who's been awful in those games. You know, the 49ers now, here's another one from Deebo last night that is not good. The 49ers, this is the first time the 49ers in their history that they've lost twice in a season to the same opponent after leading by 3 or more points at the start of the fourth quarter. And, you know, the 49ers have been playing football for 78 years. So
they've gagged in the division all year. They blew 3 division games.
Yep. They certainly did.
They're 1-4 in the division, I think.
49ers are the first team to lose 4 games versus division teams after leading in the fourth quarter since the 0-16 Lions back in 2008. So, yeah, it's been a bad year.
Okay. Gabriel Boyce says Shanahan's job should not be safe. Last place in the NFL's worst division with a Super Bowl roster. Kyle should be held responsible for this. The Super Bowl roster was last year's team. The Super Bowl roster, I didn't see a Super Bowl roster this year. I didn't. You got a mediocre offensive line. We knew it was mediocre early on. You have the reigning offensive player of the year, but he didn't play. You have an incredible receiver in Ayuk, but he got hurt and held out. So your offense wasn't great all year. I think it had a big rep, but I think it was more rep than anything else. And defensively, you have been horrible. I mean, the biggest fraud stat of all time was the Niners' number 3 ranking on defense in yards. That's not a top 5 defense. I don't need any fancy stats to tell me that's not a top 5 defense. I can see it with my own 2 eyes. Fuji Simeon says Cam Newton tore Josina Anderson's
focus grades, Larry. Those pro football focus grades were really good. You're telling me that's the Bible? No, I'm sorry. We're not going to do that again.
Don't go there. Fuji Simeon 13 says Cam Newton tore Josina Anderson's defense to shreds.
Yeah, Josina Anderson needs to, seriously, sometimes you just got to say, don't look for the biggest pussified excuse in the world. And, not everybody needs to be patted on the head and given a cookie. Devondre Campbell doesn't need a cookie after last night. He doesn't need, everyone knows exactly what happened. He got embarrassed. He fucking quit. Get out of here.
Why is she carrying water for Devondre Campbell?
I don't know.
Joshua Wyatt, don't cut him, make him quit, dress him each week and sit him and then put him in for one play a game so the fans get a chance to boo him. Yeah, it's not as simple as that.
No,
yeah,
get rid of him.
What are you trying to have the guy charge Shanahan in the middle of the game and choke him out? I mean, what are we doing here? Ricardo Rodriguez is mistake number 1, trying to force feed Tyshawn, no longer Deebo. Number 2, only 19 run plays to 31 passes. Thank you. Number 3, Purdy not checked down. Purdy not checked down. 4, not making Kittle the go-to guy.
Purdy had underneath stuff open all night long, and he was big game hunting in a game where he shouldn't have been. Had he played the way he played against the Chicago Bears, the 49ers win that game last night. Purdy didn't do any of that bullshit against Chicago. The 49ers have had one good game all year, and it was the Chicago game. The rest of these things have been slogs.
Kyle's going to speak today at 12:30, by the way. Here is the last night you missed this, Damon. I went off last night and it was particularly salty. Listen to this. Game plan tonight was all wrong. Wait. Sorry about that.
You can't recount it. You have to play me the audio recording of you saying this.
Yeah, this is actually pretty because you get no moment on a show. Here we go.
In other words, this is you were in your zone.
Wrong. God damn it. Hold on. I was in a zone. No, I just wanted to play this. Game plan tonight was all wrong. When I saw them trying desperately to get Deebo off early, I thought, oh my God, they've lost their fucking mind. This guy is totally cooked, and they're going to ruin this game and ruin their chances at the playoffs trying to get this has-been to feel good. And it didn't work, and it isn't going to work. And I think they got what they deserve tonight. I mean, they should have featured JJ and Kittle and Garendo and Cowing and Speed and, thinking about tomorrow. Instead, they're thinking about yesterday, trying to dial it back and get the glory days for Deebo. And it ain't there. It is not there.
It's like we're getting Larry Krueger Inception. There's almost too much Larry Krueger on this show right now.
Well, no, but I mean, I couldn't recreate that. I couldn't recreate that.
Yeah,
just, you know what I mean?
It's a well taken, but look, the 49ers lost the plot last night. It felt like that they wanted to wake up Deebo more than they wanted to beat the LA Rams. And without beating the LA Rams, it doesn't matter who's waked up or not. I mean,
right.
So,
don't lose the war trying to win some individual battle. And that's what they did. They came out to win some individual battle, and they lost the war. Fuji Simeon says, Larry, if your dad was a true SI Wildcat, and he was, He would have told you and your siblings, true Wildcats don't quit. Only Reardon guys quit midseason. Ooh, look at that. Look at that. Lawless Light says, so this was the please Deebo game, not the must win game. Exactly. Exactly. That's what it looked like. Big Time 3 says, Krug, were you a Jimmy G supporter also? I mean, once again, Jimmy was better than what they had prior, so I was excited early. But to me, Jimmy petered out real early because he was so bad if the first read wasn't there. And then the pitter-patter feet and the moronic turnovers. No, I mean, I like Jimmy as a dude. I thought Jimmy was a really cool guy. I mean, really down-to-earth guy. But
that's
kind of not the smartest guy, not the best quarterback.
And that's where Jimmy also let everyone down. Like if he was a really cool guy, he wouldn't be impossible to get on the phone over a 4-month period. You know, if you just made him the highest paid player in the history of the National Football League, you're hard to reach. Like, fuck you, dude. Come on. Like that's insane.
He was pretty good, but he wasn't great. And I literally said as he was being carted off in the Miami game, the Niners just got a whole lot better at quarterback as Brock Purdy was walking in, and 3 or 4 people in the media in the first row looked up at me like, who the fuck are you? What are you talking about? We just lost our guy, and we're going to some backup nobody. I'm like, no. Mason Davis says, hire Saleh and make him assistant head coach and in full control of defense. Also, let's lose out and get a top 10 pick. I would like to see them play, you know, whatever youth they have, play the youth, get a top 10 pick.
Yep.
You know, I know that none of these players are going to tank for draft position because there's no guarantees any of them are going to be on the team next year. I'm not saying that the players should tank. The players would never tank. What I'm saying is the 49ers ought to prioritize playing the Jalen Grahams and the younger players over some of the veterans, and they ought to shut down some of their guys who, you know, like Deebo, like Trent, like a few others.
Yeah, and the rub there is the Niners actually might get a better result.
So you might
accidentally win games as you're trying to develop. Again, there's nowhere to go but up from. That's the worst offense Kyle's ever coached as head coach of the 49ers.
Here's the other question. Do you dump Chris Kasarik and your wide 9? And the only reason I say that is because look at the best teams in the game. They are all running 3-4 defenses. All of the best defenses in pro football are 3-4.
I want you to run
Kansas City, Baltimore, everybody, Detroit, everybody, Green Bay, everybody's defense that's good. Chargers have a really good defense, 3-4. Everybody's running the 3-4. The Niners are running a 4-3, a version of the 4-3 called the wide 9. Should they stay with it?
I would say that the wide 9 wasn't complained about at all when it was working. And then when things start to not work, you have to ask yourself, are we built to be this wide 9 team that we used to be? And how much easier would it be to convert to something that might work better for us than this? Like, I actually thought that not Sean McVay, but Brandon Staley was going to install a little bit of a 3-4 look this year. Like, I thought that was going to be the hybrid that the 49ers showed us. And they have stayed in their base, not blitzing, totally boring, poor tackling defense.
They blitzed yesterday, but I mean, they did send extra guys yesterday.
Again,
but you're right. I mean, they've gone to the wide 9. They love their wide 9, but you know what? The wide 9 is a front that I think really works if you have great tackles that can come off blocks. Because what happens in the wide 9 is that your ends, just by getting out of their stance and getting up the field, are essentially setting the edge in the run game because they're so far outside that it's really difficult to get outside the defensive end in a wide 9 alignment. Okay, so the whole thing is to spill everything back inside. But when you spill it back inside, you either have to have awesome linebackers filling the gaps, which they've had in the past, or great D tackles who can neutralize their man, throw them away, and come off the tackle or come off the block and make the tackle. And they don't have that player anymore. They did it initially with Buckner and Armstead, and now with Collins and Elliott, they're good. They're solid players, but they're not those kinds of players that can really can come firing off their block and make a play. So they need better. They either need way better talent up front, or they need to switch their front. I think, and we'll see what their plan is. But the fact that this team was so bad in the fourth quarter is really discouraging. When we get this one from Big Dad 5-2, he says, if Greenlaw is healthy, extend him now. Yeah, I agree. Keyshawn McMillan, remember Stafford's 3 dropped interceptions and underthrown wide open touchdown. Remember when Love threw a game-ending interception in double coverage last year? Everyone has flaws. No question. Yep. No question about it. And the Niners, by the way, in the first half of this game, probably dropped 3 interceptions. They had their hands on footballs in this game. They didn't come away with them.
Diamador Lenore was another candidate for the lobster roll. He had some really nice plays last night.
Oh, he was great. Jack Parada says, "Man, that game sucked." Culo.
I think that's Spanish for ass.
Oh, here's some for the ganja jar.
Thank you, Jack. Thank you.
Lawless Light says Kyle is a people pleaser. Get someone in the office with grit, please.
Kyle is a lot of things. People pleaser would not be one of them. I mean, come on. Kyle's not a people pleaser. Kyle doesn't give a shit how you feel about any interaction that he just had with you.
But you know what? The fact of the matter is, the one thing that you can absolutely say goes hand in hand. You don't win close football games when you don't play good situational football on either side of the ball. When you're not good on third down, you're not good in the red zone. You know, when you can't do the little things right, you're not going to win close games. You may win blowout games, but you won't win close games. Yeah, and guess what? They don't win close games under Kyle Shanahan now.
It's a problem.
They really don't.
It's a fourth quarter problem. It's an undeniable problem. It's an indefensible problem. You have a problem that go along the lines of, Los Angeles Chargers before they hired Harbaugh. You are the Indianapolis Colts defensively, which means you ain't shit.
Fuji Simeon says, Larry and Damon, to me, Brock is a Chevy Tahoe. Hey, be careful. I drive a Chevy Tahoe. He says, not luxurious SUV, but still decent. Will get the job done and will hold up for years if properly maintained. Fuji Simeon, I feel like there's a camera somewhere and you're watching me drive my Tahoe with over 100,000 miles back and forth to practice. But yes, when I bought that Tahoe for my wife, we had kids. We had the full gaggle of little ones. Her first thought was, it's too big. We'd had like a Dodge Caravan or something like that, but I couldn't drive that minivan anymore. It was making me sick. So I'm like, I got to go with the Chevy Tahoe. So we went the Tahoe. She's like, it's too big. It's not going to work. And then, of course, it became her favorite car, and she drove it forever and lugged the kids to and from soccer practice, basketball practice, all their friends. So, yes, the Chevy Tahoe has done us well, but it's not luxury, but it is solid. It will get the job done. Lawless Light. I've seen too many underthrown deep balls. What's up with that?
There was an overthrow on a deep ball last night in the end zone that ended the game for the Niners, basically. That was the worst throw. Brock Purdy, down, distance, situation. You're in 4 down territory. If you want to win the game on this drive, you are already in field goal range. What are you doing?
What are you doing? Dude? Seriously, his dial, all quarterbacks have a dial. And what it is risk reward. How much risk for how much reward? And I thought in his first 2 years, Brock Purdy's dial was absolutely perfect. He drove the ball down the field. He took chances, but he protected the football. This year, with the kind of equation, if you will, eroding around him to some degree, he's run more and at times has made some real good plays, but he's also, his dials are off and his risk reward meter is off, and he took bigger risks than he needed to take in situations he didn't need to take them. And he and Kyle
have suffered from the same conservative in moments you need to be aggressive and too aggressive in moments you need to be conservative. And the two of them have been having a game of tennis all season long, hitting the ball back and forth to who can screw up that moment more.
I think Brock is actually not conservative. I think he's more of a go for it guy. I think Kyle is a little bit more conservative. I agree. I think Kyle should go for it more on fourth downs, and then he does. And for whatever reason, I mean, to me, that's more along the lines of modern football. Gabriel Boyce says Hensley and Grant hated Darnold as the backup for $5 million a year now, but now think he's a great idea as a starter for $30 million a year. I mean, it's just once again, it's this whole like. You know, the real what people really want is they want regime change. You know, I don't want what I'm looking at. Right. I just want change. I don't like this quarterback. We're not winning. Get him. We don't. This head coach. I don't care if he's got some good traits. We're not winning. Get rid of him. You know. So it's that kind of impulsive decision making that led to the removal of Jim Harbaugh. Well, and look what's next. I mean, that's okay to get rid of Harbaugh as long as you're going to somebody good, not Jim Tom Sula. It would be okay to get rid of Kyle Shanahan, but only if you're going to somebody great and not just somebody who's in the building. And look, sometimes I worry about their decision making because, like, Sorensen was just like in the building.
Yeah, look, one of the talking points last year is that, you know, maybe Adam Peters is part of the problem. He's screwing up these drafts and blah, blah, blah. This is the year where it's like, oh, they miss Adam Peters. Well, which was it? Was he screwing things up or do you miss him? Like,
right. You know, and also the greatest draft they've had during this regime was the draft that Peters was in Washington for, but everybody leaves that out. Campbell is a Temu linebacker.
It's Temu? like a bad place to buy discounted items that are probably Fugazi made in China items.
Wow.
So, yeah.
I've never been there. Greg Arjesi says Steve Young stunk in Tampa. Why? Brock is the guy. Surround the quarterback with competent O-line and weapons. And what happens? Darnold, Damon, LOL.
Hey, you're just thinking out loud. Again, if you're going to just say no,
I don't think it's not.
This might not be the show for you. I mean,
Darnold should not. A Darnold suggestion should not be met with like, what the, no. Right. It's a viable option. It needs to be discussed. I wouldn't go in that direction, but it doesn't mean it's not a good idea or doesn't have merit. Fuji Simeon says Jed needs to remodel Levi's to have a retractable roof to nullify rain and wet balls for Brock.
Can't happen. They built that stadium.
Thank you too for staying above the content creator fight.
Yeah, happy to do it. Look, Levi Stadium was a horrific stadium from the day it opened, and it will remain a terrible stadium until the day it's shut down and replaced. You cannot correct it. You cannot provide shade. They built it in a flight pattern, which means there's no correctable options for that at all. That dump of a stadium is yours forever. Enjoy.
I mean, it's a dump compared to other great stadiums, but you know what? To the fans who were at Candlestick, it's a dramatic upgrade. It's clean, it's nice, it's easy to get in, easy to get out. I have no problem with it.
I don't think it's easy to get in or out of, but okay, go ahead.
John Snow says Brock is a baby Drew Brees, needs time to cook. Okay, there's a guy who's his fan. Mary Chicago Faithful says, what upsets me the most is Kyle running his running backs into the ground until they're injured. CMC, Mason, and now Garendo. He's no genius. He can't mix up plays. He's a one-trick pony. He sucks. Love you guys.
Thank you.
I don't understand the usage of the running backs either.
Yeah.
Why could you not see what we saw, which is that you had some talent at the position and a little bit here, a little bit there. Instead, it was like, let's take the car that has 150,000 miles on it and two bad wheels and a bad, whatever.
And drive to Florida.
And let's go cross country. Well, we've got these two new cars and we're not going to drive them at all until we break down in Missouri. And then we're going to have our new cars shipped out from California. And then, it's just like, why did you not use your other backs? I mean, and even when CMC came back, it was like you then forgot about your other backs for another 3 weeks.
I don't want to have any more players on this roster who have no possibility of playing. That's if you're on this team, you should be eligible to be tapped on the shoulder to go into a game at any time. And it's like Kyle has done this. He did it last year with his linebackers when you thought you should have seen more Jimmy Graham and you didn't. it's weird how Kyle has ignored what looks like a talented depth chart when you'd think that a coach would lean into that to make his team better.
Seymour Ducats. Tough call to say fire Kyle Shanahan, but think objectively. Best offensive roster for the Niners in 2023, maybe ever. Couldn't get it done. There's fatal flaws in Kyle Shanahan's coaching. Do you give up assuming he won't do it? What? I do.
Look, I don't look at Kyle as
give up assuming he won't do it here ever. I don't know about that last sentence, Seymour, but thank you for the 999.
What he's trying to ask is, do you think that Kyle can stay here and actually get it done? Or does he need a new location to really get it done? I think Kyle will win a Super Bowl one day. I do. I think it's going to happen here. I think it's going to happen in another time. I think if this guy coaches for another 20 years in this league, he will win a Super Bowl. I think he is that good of a coach. The question is, does he still have the buy-in that he needs in his own locker room, with his fan base, with ownership? And Jed York is the only guy that really needs to be impressed with what he sees. And if he is, Kyle's staying.
You got to have excellence in this league. There's coaching excellence in Kansas City. They don't just have Andy Reid. They also have the best special teams coach and one of the best defensive coordinators and the best quarterback. So that's the standard. They're on top. Do you want to be on top? You can't get it done with Sorensen. You're going to have a star defensive coordinator. You're going to have greater talent. You're going to have to maybe have a better offensive weapons, a better offensive line. But I do think he can get it done, but he can't get it done unless he acknowledges that he needs a star defensive coordinator, and he needs to leave that guy alone and just let him do his job. But he needs a guy that is worthy of leaving alone. And they should have gone to Fangio. Look at Fangio and what he's done in Philadelphia. I mean, I think in hindsight, they kind of blew that one. And I don't know if they'll have another opportunity for somebody as good as Vic this offseason. But they really, to me, there's no cap for assistant coaches. If you want to keep Kasarik and your wide nine, to me, you give Robert Saleh a big check and say, come here, because he will keep Kasarik in the wide nine, and he will coordinate your defense. And without, before he even walks in the door, he's already won the room over. He's got their respect. It's not a new scheme. It's their old scheme. But I think that's probably the guy. That's probably the move I would make, is go give Robert Saleh a big raise. The second move I would make is I would demand that they have like a John Dorsey or some kind of draft consultant taking maybe a Scott McLuhan, another set of eyes with somebody who's done it before and had success before, because you can't keep screwing up these number one picks. This is why you're at where you're at, because, I like John Lynch, but the bottom line is he's hitting 20% in the first round. That's not good. That's not good enough. And you have to be better than that.
It's not a super, but Chicago Jason says, he said 20 years. God damn. Look, Kyle's only 44 years old. Kyle is going to be a head coach in the NFL unless he decides, I'm done, I'm burnt out, for the next 2 decades. Okay.
He might be burnt. I don't know. He seems a little burnt out.
Here's the thing. I will say this. I think Kyle is the best guy for the job, but I no longer look at him in the light of he's the only guy for the job. There's, and maybe with, an overwhelming amount of regression and collapse and fourth quarter disappointments, maybe putting somebody in Kyle's rearview mirror would be good to push him creatively as a coach.
We don't even know, by the way, how Jed feels, or about the ownership, how they feel. Denise DeBartolo York, Dr. John. We don't know how they feel. For all we know, they could say, we love Kyle Shanahan, but we only want him back if he has a new defensive coordinator and a new special teams coach. And he might say, go fly a kite. I want out. So, right now, everything seems hunky-dory, but we don't know what demands ownership will make on Kyle and how he'll react to those demands, if there are demands, and what direction it could go. It's a very volatile situation. All I would say is I am bringing him back unless there's a real, better option out there. And I don't see one. And don't tell me Ben Johnson. Ben Johnson's never been a head coach. He's 36. He's got the greatest personnel on offense at every spot. They've got the best offensive line. They've got the best running backs. They got incredible receivers. I mean, they've got a lot. They've got tremendous talent there. If you said to me, what's the key to the Detroit Lion offense, I would say it's the personnel. They have incredible personnel. And I would, if I could get that GM, Brad Holmes, I'd be more interested in him than Ben Johnson. I really think the key to the Lions is personnel. Beats and meets. Time to ask 40 players. So what would you say you do here?
Yeah, you go have a meeting with the Bobs.
Travie 86. I understand why you don't want to fire Kyle, but why do you want a better O-line when Kyle is the reason it's not good? Please answer honestly. I want a better O-line because they haven't invested enough in their O-line. And why have they not invested enough in their O-line? Because they're prioritizing their D-line, and they've swung and missed enough on the D-line that they've had to keep duplicating those picks. So they could have just drafted Solomon Thomas. If he was a war daddy, that would have ended right there. But instead, he was a bust. Then they went to Kinlaw. He was a bust. They've drafted Drake and others on the defensive line. I mean, they've drafted defensive linemen, and they have to keep doing it. Because, they've got this philosophy, you can never have enough defensive linemen, and that defensive line's their priority. But what it's done is essentially made them ignore their offensive line, and they gave up 18 pressures, as Damon said earlier in the game to the Rams. How many pressures did the Niners get, by the way? Do you have that in front of you?
I don't have that in front of me, but it feels like 0. I mean, do you think Sam Darnold even took a shower after last night's game? Maybe to just get warm.
I mean Stafford, yeah.
Yeah.
Mike 824 says trying to force the ball to a wash Deebo because he's whining is an indictment on the coaching staff and downright unacceptable in a must-win game. I mean,
I think Kyle gets to get called out for that for sure.
No doubt. I mean, it's like, why were you guys so intent on getting Deebo going other than you want to make Deebo happy? How about let's make me happy and let's win the game? Lucian LeChance the fourth. Do you know who Lucian LeChance is?
No,
he was a famous jockey.
Okay.
So we have a horse racing fan in our midst. He said,
was he at Golden Gate Fields?
I think he was better than Golden Gate Fields, Damon. I think this is like one of the great jockeys. I'd have to look it up, but I think
I usually have decent jockey knowledge. I'm surprised I didn't recognize that one.
And that's only a guess by me, by the way. That's a guess. So maybe I should type in Lucian LeChance and look for myself. But he says, should the 49ers pursue Vic Fangio as head coach? Should the 49ers switch to a 3-4 defense? I mean, the 3-4 defense, I think, has to be discussed because all the best defenses in pro football are 3-4 defenses. As far as Fangio as a head coach, man, he didn't look very good in Denver as a head coach. I think he tops out as a defensive coordinator. But I think here's the thing. You could pay him like a head coach. Just give him the defensive coordinator a moniker. If you want to say, what would Eddie D do under the current rules to get an edge? I'll tell you exactly what Eddie D would have done under the current rules to get an edge. He would pay top tier assistants, and he would have the best coaching staff because there's no cap for that.
Apparently, Lucian LeChance is a video game character from the game The Elder Scrolls.
Okay. Oh, maybe I got my Lucian LeChance wrong. I thought he was a
no, you're no Bob Baffert, Larry.
Perfect Blackness is, I don't care what you say. The D played more than well enough to win this game, even in the fourth. All of this is on the offense and Shanny. No, it isn't.
Well, no, look, you do.
Their defense collapsed at the end. What game are you fucking watching? I mean, look at the defense in the. So wait a second. The 49ers, Brock Purdy threw an interception. He threw an interception with 5 minutes left to play. Right? Let me see. Let me double check that. I think that's right. It was like 5 minutes left to play.
Though, Larry, you keep the Rams offense, who had 44 like the week before to beat the Bills, and you hold them without a touchdown and 12 points. You've done pretty much what's required defensively to win a game.
That's obvious, but I'm just saying, don't tell me it's all. He's saying this is all on the offense. When the 49ers threw the interception, when Brock Purdy threw the interception that was picked, there was 5:14 left, and the Rams were getting the ball on their own 20-yard line. If the Niners defense was worth a two shits, they could have gotten off the field and gotten the ball back with plenty of time to kick the tying field goal. It was only 9-6. Instead, they give up a 13-play drive over. There was only 5:14 on the clock when the Rams got the ball. The drive went 4 minutes and 56 seconds. So the Rams ran out the game on the Niners defense. So you can't say that the defense, it wasn't on the defense too. The defense could not get a stop in the fourth, and that has been the problem. Now, of course, when you score 6 points and you give up 12, it's more on the offense. I don't think anybody would say that it's on the defense first, but the defense has been a disaster in the fourth quarter. The reality is the 49er defense in the fourth quarter is a defense equivalent of giving up like 35 points a game. That's like the worst defense in football. That's what it is in the fourth quarter. So, yeah, this one was definitely on the offense for sure, but the defense also has been bad all year. And if they had gotten a stop late, they could have given the offense one more shot. I mean, we've seen Kansas City struggle in games this year, but then guess what? Their defense gets a stop late. They give the ball back to Mahomes, and then in the final sequence, he drives the length of the field and wins the game. And nobody's sitting there going, Mahomes and Andy Reid's offense is not that great. They're like, oh, Mahomes to the rescue. But in reality, what was required there? A defensive stop. And the Niners can't get a defensive stop. And to me, that's at least part of the problem. That's all I'm saying. Fuji Simeon says lobster rolls go to team security for protecting Campbell from his angry teammates and getting him to safety. Could have collected 3 more game checks. Yeah. Good riddance. That guy's locker's cleaned out. Rob Aman says, if the Saints cut Derek Carr, I'd bring in Carr to push Purdy. I'd make Clay Kubiak the interim offensive coordinator for the rest of the season. Rob, I hate that idea. I think Carr is broken.
That's the most Jesus-y quarterback room in the NFL right there. I don't think we need that.
Oh, and Carr can't play. His dials are forever screwed up. Lawless Lights says, is Brock great or a gamer? Tony Romo, was he great or a gamer? Tony Romo wasn't great or a gamer. I don't think Brock's great, but I do think he's kind of a pretty game competitor. But you know what? It's both guys are flawed. That's all we could really say. Ham says, can't fire Kyle, but red flags. Knew the O-line needed help the last 2 off seasons. CMC and Deebo delusion. Unwilling to update scheme for personnel. Yeah, there's some good stuff there.
Yeah.
Lawless Light said, had a Charger fan tell me that if Kansas City had Jalen Hurts, they'd be just as good because of Andy Reid. Do you agree? No.
Yeah, I mean, look, there is no one who is the equivalent of Patrick Mahomes. There isn't.
No. And Hurts has regressed this year, too. He's not quite the same player. Perfect Blackness is off-season schedule. 1, Shanny, take a long look in the mirror. 2, trade Deebo. Oh, yeah, what are you getting there?
You get nothing for him.
You get nothing.
Just
3, extend Dre Greenlaw. 4, and JJ. 4, prioritize the D and offensive line in the draft. 5, and free agency. 5, do not extend Purdy. 6, discuss Shador Sanders. What's to discuss? He's going first. You don't have the pick.
In the draft. You're not getting him.
Yeah. Discuss, Playboy Bunnies, too, because you're not getting them either. D. Martinez, the O-line got beat into submission. Forster, don't take linemen early in the draft. It's not aging well. Oh, Forster's Forster's edict that we don't take linemen early in the draft is not aging well. Yeah, the O-line needs upgrades for sure.
Hey, maybe Chris Forrester's part of the problem too. It's just who doesn't need to be reevaluated, right?
He's a pretty good coach, but yeah, Fuji Simeon said if Parsons was traded to San Francisco, I would go to a 3-4 set. Yeah,
don't think the Dallas Cowboys are going to trade Micah Parsons to the 49ers, but thank you.
Rob Amon says Kyle should have said no should have no say on defense next season. I kind of agree. Justin Rodriguez, $4.99. Justin Rodriguez, based off last night, I'd say Shanahan is too much of a players coach. What do you guys think? He's definitely a players coach, but it's like one of those things. When you win, it's a positive. When you lose, it's a negative. I don't think it's a negative, but I do think that having favorites like Deebo, it works when they're great players, but when their star dims, it no longer works.
It
works though if the guy's a star, right?
Right. So it's sort of like how the Warriors sort of lost what's important by trying to do right by Klay Thompson, right? Yeah. There was a point in time where they should have walked away from Klay before they walked away from Klay, but they didn't. And that loyalty is admirable on some levels. It's also team destructive on others. And there is no more Deebo Samuel. As for the 49ers should start operating as if he did not exist in their universe any longer. It's over.
I hate to say it. I know it's over. You know it's over. I don't know that Kyle knows it's over. And I don't know that Deebo knows it's over. And I don't know that Lynch knows it's over. If you said do you think he's done? I would say yes. Do you think he'll be back? I would say yes.
If he comes back, he's back at a massively restructured salary, already beyond the restructuring that he's agreed to. And you're the third wide receiver, bro. You are a gadget guy. You are not X or Y. You might not even be Z.
But here's the thing. Ayuk's hurt, and he's better than the other guys except for JJ.
Is he?
So it's like
better than the other guys?
Draft somebody better. You have to get somebody else.
I don't know. I don't think you make the argument that he's better than anybody. I would be more
clearly better than Pearsall.
I'd be more interested in Jacob Cowing fucking everything up between now and the end of the season than Deebo having any degree of success.
Can we use Jacob Cowing down the field? I mean, my God, why draft a small 4-3 receiver if you're not going to throw him the ball down the field? My God, how many? I just can't watch that anymore. Joseph Ernberg says, Krug fan meetup to help with the stove installation. Joseph, I love you for even thinking about that. Fuji Simeon says, Larry, I would never disrespect a Chevy Tahoe. My dad has the same one for almost 20 years. Haha. Who needs a Tesla Cybertruck when a Tahoe will do? It's funny. When I bought the Tahoe, the sales guy said to me, he's like, you're buying a car that if you just continue to put gas and oil in it, will literally run forever. And, the car's got about 150,000 miles and I bought it when the kids were babies and Kev's now 22. So it's unbelievable. Vin Nguyen says they're not going to. Is
this the Tahoe that has an unfunctioning seatbelt in the passenger seat?
Yes. Yes. It doesn't. The seatbelt does not work anymore in the passenger seat with my wife.
I'll pick you up, and then we're in the car. We're driving down to Sam's Chowder House, and I'm like, "This seatbelt is something funny." He's like, "Oh yeah, that doesn't work." Meanwhile, we're on 280 doing 70 miles an hour.
But it's funny. Somehow we got through our entire childhood without wearing seatbelts, and we're still here. Vin Nguyen says they're not going to fire Kyle, but if they don't get an OC next year, then nothing will change. How about tempo? Can we use tempo ever? I don't know.
New set of eyes. There needs to be a new set of eyes, and there does need again. I don't think Kyle has a hurry up offense. I don't think he's got one.
They need adjustments. They need to adjust what they're doing. And I've got many ideas for it as well too. I've got lots and lots of ideas I'll share with you guys in the days ahead. I've already done several deep dives on the draft. I've got 300-pound defensive linemen that I'm converting to fullback. I've got all kinds of things working over here.
No more fullbacks, Larry.
I'm getting rid of Juszczyk with a guy named JJ Pegues, who's an Ole Miss defensive tackle who they've been using in short yardage, Damon. He's 7 for 7 in either touchdowns or first downs in short yardage. Yeah. He's just 300 pounds and he's fast.
He'd be a rookie in the backfield, which means Shanahan wouldn't use him. Wasted draft.
Well, it's time to start using some young guys. They should have used their young guys this year. Rob Amon says Purdy needs to develop chemistry with Pearsall and Cowing this offseason, no doubt. Greg R. Jay-Z, guys, love you both, but Sam isn't better than Brock.
The question is he cheaper, a better value at $25 million than Brock would be at 60? Could you put a better team around him? Could you address offensive and defensive line?
Here's the problem, though. Why can't they just pay Brock why can't the Niners be like everybody else? Why are they special? How come the Dolphins can pay Tua 50 and the Eagles can pay Hurts 50 and still they have good teams? And yet Niner fans are like, if you pay Brock 50, your team will be horrible. It's like, wait a second, the Eagles are doing it. I mean, he deserves to make market value. He's not an elite quarterback, but he's a top 10 quarterback.
Yeah.
I don't know that I would pay him $60 million. I would not want to pay him $60 million,
Right.
but I don't think you can avoid paying him 50. I think he's clearly getting 50.
We're all saying, well, he's now got to go make more money than Dak Prescott. Well, everybody looks at Dak Prescott's contract and says that was a ridiculous Prescott. Why do the 49ers need to match the Cowboys' level of bad decisions just to have the market? I don't know. It's a tough situation. It really is. I like Brock at $60 million. I don't know if I like him as much. I just got to be honest. He's got some serious fourth quarter underperformance that is alarming. It's not all on him, but in a year where he had an opportunity to prove I will be the tide that raises all boats in the harbor, it's hard to say in the last few weeks he's even come close to proving that. As a matter of fact, some of the worst football has been the most important moments of this year.
We got to jet because we're at the end here. And Fuji Simeon says, now that season is over, I love my gas stove and oven, beats and meats. Hope you guys seen that comparison between Kyle's 49er resume and Andy Reid's resume when he was with the Eagles. The parallels are staggering. Do not let Kyle go. He'll get his 3 rings at his next stop. I kind of agree with that. Come on Friday. Time for change on defense. Rex Ryan or Vrabel. Rex Ryan? I don't know about that. Perfect Blackness. Krug, they held Stafford to 16 for 27 for 160, no touchdowns. You don't think all those 3 and outs had any effect on the defense? No question. No, Perfect Blackness. You're totally right. You've got me. I don't know why you think I'm arguing that it wasn't the defense. It was the defense. I mean, it wasn't that it wasn't the offense. It was the offense. But all I'm saying is this defense caved in the fourth quarter. When they needed to stop, their defense didn't get a stop.
3 of 12. 3 of 12 on third down.
Yeah. Vrabel for DC. If Salah says no. Big time, says Larry, if you expect D to play perfect all 4 quarters, O should be held to the same standards. It's not perfect. I'm just expecting them to not cave at the end. And they caved at the end all season. This is not a one-game thing. But you're right. The offense was the problem. Do I need to yell it? The offense was the problem! The offense was the problem! Does that make it? Does that help?
The problem lie?
Does that help? Rob Amon, my Brock Bridge deal, 3 years, $120 million. That's $40 a year. I know my math. Go Cats, get them Cats.
We guarantee it.
Fuji Simeon says at least San Francisco have a shot at Roki Sasaki. LOL. Oh my God.
That's where we are.
Kids get Roki Sasaki. I'll be very happy. All right, that's going to do it for us.
John Sasaki on TV out here for a long time as a broadcaster.
Great, John Sasaki. He's a very good man. I don't know if I told you my John Sasaki story. I came home one day. He was standing like literally next to me doing a stand-up like next to my house because my neighbor had like a cache of like weapons and arms and grenades in his garage, and they had like the cops uncovered it, and it was like a big KTVU thing. And John Sasaki. And I'm like, he's like, your neighbor's got enough. You could probably blow up several countries over here. I'm like, oh, you always seem like a nice guy. All right. Anyway, that's going to do it for us. Have a great day, everybody. Damon, have a great one. I'm joining Chase Senior. Chase Senior and I are going to jet. We're going to do a little stream right now vis-a-vis my YouTube channel.